Have you ever walked past an old building at night and felt that strange chill, like someone's watching you, even when you're alone? New York may look alive with lights and noise, but hidden behind its modern face are places where the past refuses to rest. From eerie whispers echoing through abandoned hospitals to shadows that never seem to fade, these spots hold stories of loss, tragedy, and mystery. Today, we're uncovering the 5 most haunted places in New York, where history and horror walk hand in hand. Are you brave enough to explore them? If you love exploring haunted places and real ghost stories, make sure to subscribe. There's a lot more darkness waiting to be discovered. 1. Amityville House, Amityville, Long Island. The night I reached Amityville, the streets were strangely quiet. I had read about the old Dutch colonial house for years, the one with those 2 eerie eye-shaped windows that seemed to stare straight into your soul. But reading about it and standing in front of it were 2 completely different things. The air felt thick, like the silence itself carried a memory that refused to fade. I parked my car across the street, the headlights dimming as if even the light didn't want to disturb what lived inside that house. The house looked peaceful from a distance, almost normal. A white fence, an empty driveway, and the soft sound of wind passing through the trees. But as I stepped closer, something in me shifted. That uneasy feeling when your instincts whisper that something isn't right. My chest felt tight, and every sound around me seemed louder than it should be, the crunch of gravel under my shoes, the rustling leaves, even my own breathing. I remember telling myself it was just nerves, but deep down, it felt like the house was aware of me. I stood by the gate, looking up at the windows. For a split second, I thought I saw movement, a faint silhouette, like someone standing behind the glass on the 2nd floor. My heart started racing. I blinked, but it was gone. Maybe it was my imagination, maybe not. I decided to walk around the back, hoping to see more of the property. The old boathouse by the river was still there, half-rotted, creaking as the wind passed through its broken planks. The smell of damp wood and river water mixed into the night air, and it reminded me of something old, something that didn't belong to the present anymore. I stopped when I reached the back door. It was slightly open. The moment I saw that, a cold chill ran down my spine. Every story I'd read about the DeFeo murders came flooding back, how, on that same night in 1974, 6 people were shot in their sleep while the whole neighborhood heard nothing. That silence, they said, was the most terrifying part. I hesitated for a long moment before pushing the door open just enough to peek inside. It was dark, but I could make out faint outlines, a staircase leading up, an old chandelier above, dust floating in the beam of my flashlight. I didn't step in. Something about that space felt heavy, like the air itself was carrying the memory of what happened there. Then I heard it, a faint creak upstairs, followed by what sounded like footsteps. Slow, careful, deliberate. I froze. The light in my hand began to flicker, and for the first time in years, I felt pure, uncontrollable fear. My instinct screamed at me to leave, so I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes on that open door. When I finally reached my car, I sat there for a few minutes, hands shaking on the steering wheel, staring at the house from the rearview mirror. The lights inside flickered once, just once, as if the house was watching me go. I drove off without looking back, but even now, when I close my eyes, I can still see those windows staring at me through the dark. Some people say the Amityville house is just a story, exaggerated by books and movies. But I know what I felt that night. That wasn't imagination. That house remembers. 2. Rolling Hills Asylum, East Bethany, New York. It was almost midnight when I reached Rolling Hills Asylum in East Bethany. The wind was sharp and cold, and the sky above the empty fields looked endless. My flashlight beam cut through the fog as I walked toward the massive brick building that once housed the poor, the sick, and the insane. The place stood like a dark reminder of lives forgotten, tall windows, some shattered, others boarded, staring back like empty eyes. I could feel the weight of silence pressing against my chest, and for a moment, I wondered if I should really be there alone. I pushed the rusted side door open, and it gave out a long metallic groan that echoed through the halls. Inside, the air smelled like dust and old paper, mixed with something faintly sweet, like decaying flowers. My boots scraped against the floor as I entered the main corridor. The walls were lined with peeling paint, and my flashlight revealed faded names carved into them, probably by patients long gone. Each step I took echoed back at me, but after a while, I began to hear something else, footsteps that didn't belong to me. At first, I thought it was just sound bouncing off the walls, but then the rhythm changed. It was slower, heavier. I stopped walking, but the sound didn't stop. My throat tightened. I called out, "Hello," but my voice came back empty, swallowed by the darkness. I stood there frozen for a few seconds, waiting for something, anything, to move. Then a door at the far end of the hallway creaked open on its own. I walked toward it slowly, my heart pounding. The room beyond looked like an old infirmary. Beds with rusted frames lined the walls, each covered with thin, torn sheets. My flashlight caught something on one of the mattresses, small indentations, like someone had just been sitting there. The air turned colder, and I could see my breath now. I whispered to myself, "It's just the wind." But then I heard it, a man's voice, low and rough, saying my name. I froze. No one knew I was here. The voice came again, clearer this time, "Why are you here?" My legs felt weak. I turned around, shining my light in every direction, but there was no one there. Just the flicker of shadows dancing across the wall. I backed away toward the door, trying to steady my breathing. As I reached the hallway, a loud crash echoed from behind me, like something heavy falling to the ground. I ran. The sound of footsteps followed, fast, uneven, right behind me. I didn't dare look back. The hallway seemed longer than before, like it was stretching endlessly. I burst through the side door and stumbled into the cold night air. For a moment, everything went quiet again, except for my heartbeat pounding in my ears. When I finally reached my car, I looked back at the asylum one last time. In one of the upper windows, I saw a shadow standing perfectly still, watching me. The same window that, locals say, belonged to a patient named Roy, the one they claim never left. I don't know if what I saw was real, but I know what I felt that night. Rolling Hills isn't just haunted by ghosts. It's haunted by memories, and once you step inside, a part of you stays there too. 3. Letchworth Village, Thiels, New York. The first time I visited Letchworth Village in Thiels, New York, it was a gray afternoon in early winter. The air smelled like rain and rust, and the whole place looked frozen in time. The buildings, once home to hundreds of patients, stood silent, windows broken, doors hanging half open. I had read stories about what happened here, but standing in front of it, the reality felt different. The silence wasn't empty. It felt like the place was holding its breath. I walked down a cracked pathway covered in dead leaves, my boots crunching with every step. Faded signs pointed toward Children's Ward and Medical Wing. I remember feeling a strange mix of curiosity and guilt, curiosity because I wanted to see what was left, guilt because it felt wrong to be there, like intruding on someone's forgotten pain. The wind picked up and carried faint echoes from the trees, the kind that sound almost like voices if you listen long enough. When I entered the first building, the smell of mold hit me instantly. The air was thick and cold. My flashlight beam slid across empty hallways where paint peeled off like dead skin. There were wheelchairs and hospital beds left behind, some still with straps on them. I couldn't help but imagine the people who once lived here, children who never saw the outside world again, patients who were left to die alone. I whispered to myself, this place shouldn't have been forgotten. As I moved deeper into the building, I started hearing small sounds. Soft knocks, like something tapping the walls. I told myself it was just the wind, but then came the sound of footsteps above me, slow and heavy. I stopped breathing for a moment. The upper floors had collapsed years ago, so whatever was moving up there shouldn't have been possible. My heart started racing. I called out, "Hello?" The sound stopped immediately. The silence that followed was louder than any noise I'd ever heard. I walked into a room filled with old patient files scattered across the floor. One folder had a name still visible, Eleanor, age 9. Her medical notes were smudged, but I could read enough to understand. She had been left there because her family couldn't care for her. I sat down for a moment, trying to imagine what her life must have been like here. That's when I heard it, a faint humming sound, like a little girl singing. It was coming from the hallway. I stood up slowly, every muscle in my body tense. The humming grew louder, clearer, and it was coming closer. My flashlight began to flicker. I turned it toward the door and saw something move past, a small shadow, just the height of a child. My throat went dry. I couldn't speak. I just backed away until I hit the wall behind me. Then, as suddenly as it started, the humming stopped. The silence returned. I didn't stay much longer after that. As I left the building, I felt like someone was walking behind me, but when I turned, there was nothing there. When I finally reached my car, I looked back one last time. In the top window of the children's ward, I saw a faint glow, soft, like candlelight. Maybe it was my mind playing tricks. Or maybe, just maybe, Eleanor never really left Letchworth Village. 4. The Sagamore Resort, Bolton Landing, New York. When I first arrived at the Sagamore Resort in Bolton Landing, the evening sky was fading into soft orange, and Lake George looked like a sheet of dark glass. The resort itself stood tall and elegant, glowing under warm lights that made it seem peaceful, almost comforting. But the locals had warned me, don't stay near the lake after midnight. That's when the spirits wander. I laughed it off at first, thinking it was just another tourist tale meant to add mystery to an old hotel. But I would soon learn why people said that. My room was on the 3rd floor, facing the lake. Everything about it felt luxurious, the old wooden furniture, the soft carpet, the faint scent of pine. Still, there was something oddly cold about the place, like the air inside didn't belong to the rest of the world. After dinner, I decided to take a walk by the lake. The resort was quiet, the hallways empty except for the occasional sound of floorboards creaking under my feet. I stepped outside and followed the path that led down to the docks. The water was completely still. Not a single ripple. I sat on a bench, listening to the night, when I noticed something strange, a child's laughter echoing faintly across the lake. It was soft at first, almost playful, but it didn't belong there. The laughter came again, clearer this time, from somewhere near the water. I stood up, scanning the shoreline. There was no one. Then I saw it, a small figure, maybe a young boy, standing at the edge of the dock, his reflection trembling in the water. I called out, "Hey, are you okay?" The boy didn't answer. He just stood there, motionless. My stomach tightened as I took a few steps closer. That's when he turned his head toward me. His face was pale, almost gray, and his eyes looked empty. My breath caught in my throat. In the blink of an eye, he vanished, no splash, no sound, nothing. Just gone. The air suddenly grew colder, and I could see my breath fogging up in front of me. I ran back to the lobby, trying to convince myself that it was just my imagination. But when I got inside, an older woman sitting near the fireplace looked at me and said, almost casually, "You saw the boy, didn't you?" I froze. She explained that years ago, a young boy drowned in the lake while chasing after a ball. Guests still see him from time to time, standing on the dock, or wandering through the hallways, looking for his parents. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard soft footsteps in the hallway outside my room, followed by the sound of a ball bouncing, slow, steady, echoing down the corridor. My chest tightened. I got out of bed, opened the door, and looked out. The hallway was empty, but the sound kept going, getting fainter as it moved away. When I checked out the next morning, the woman at the front desk smiled politely and said, "We hope you enjoyed your stay." I almost replied that I had, but the words stuck in my throat. As I walked out toward my car, I looked back at the lake one last time. The water was still again, calm and beautiful. But near the dock, I saw it, a small ripple, just one, spreading slowly across the surface, like something unseen had just slipped beneath it. 5. St. Agnes Church, Utica, New York. The night I went to St. Agnes Church in Utica, the sky looked strange, half covered with clouds, half open to the stars. The church stood quietly at the end of an empty street, its tall spire piercing. I had seen old photos of it before, once beautiful, full of people and music. But now, the doors were locked, the windows broken, and the wind carried only silence. I don't know what pulled me there that night. Maybe curiosity, maybe something else. All I knew was that the place had a presence, even from a distance. As I got closer, the air grew colder. My footsteps echoed against the stone path leading to the entrance. The massive wooden doors were chained shut, but I found a small side entrance left slightly open. I hesitated for a second, then pushed it. The rusty hinges groaned like they hadn't been moved in years. Inside, the smell of old wood and damp stone filled the air. My flashlight beam swept across rows of empty pews covered in dust. Cobwebs hung from the arches like torn curtains, and broken glass crunched beneath my boots. I walked down the center aisle, feeling a strange pull toward the altar. The moonlight coming through the cracked stained glass painted red and blue patterns across the floor, beautiful, but unsettling. I could almost imagine the sound of a choir singing, though there was nothing but silence. Then, just as I reached the altar, I heard it, a faint whisper, like someone saying a prayer. My heart skipped. I turned around, but no one was there. The whisper came again, this time clearer, and it sounded like it was coming from the upper balcony. I pointed my flashlight upward, but the beam flickered weakly. I called out, "Is someone there?" For a moment, nothing. Then, I heard the sound of footsteps, slow, careful steps moving above me. Dust began to fall from the ceiling with each creak of the old wooden floor. My pulse was racing now. I decided to climb the stairs that led to the balcony. Each step groaned under my weight, echoing through the empty church. When I reached the top, my light caught a glimpse of something, the outline of a person, standing near the old organ. It looked like a priest, his head bowed in prayer. I froze, my breath caught in my chest. I whispered, "Hello?" The figure didn't move. I took one step forward, and the air around me turned freezing cold. My flashlight dimmed completely for a second, and when it came back on, the figure was gone. The organ behind it, however, made a soft, deep sound, like a single key being pressed by an unseen hand. I ran down the stairs, my hands trembling. The whispering started again, louder now, echoing through the church walls. It wasn't just one voice, it sounded like a whole congregation murmuring prayers in the dark. I pushed the door open and stumbled out into the cold night air. The second I stepped outside, the whispering stopped. Silence. Only the wind. When I looked back one last time, I saw faint light flickering behind the stained glass, soft, like candlelight. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe, the spirits of St. Agnes Church were still holding their midnight service, long after the living stopped coming.